Hello, and welcome back to the Common Sensitivity Podcast.
Common Sensitivity Podcast.
It is your host, Mo, and my co-host, Nathan.
What's up, Mo?
Not much. How are you?
Wonderful.
Are you doing?
Making it through the week. How about yourself?
I am doing the same. It's Thursday.
Thursday?
It's a little bit different from our usual midweek.
Hump day. We ain't got that day cracking this
Today
week,
is Thirsty Thursday.
Thirsty Thursday?
Thirsty Thursday.
I had a lot of water today. I'm not thirsty.
That is good to know.
Thank you.
I am glad that you're staying hydrated.
Got to stay hydrated out here.
Absolutely.
It's common sense, Just saying.
It might be commonly sensitive. Depends on who you are.
This is true.
And what you're drinking.
This is very true. And I like to keep the electrolytes going and stay hydrated.
Absolutely.
Does the body good.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
What you got going on today?
So we are ending September. It's the end of the month.
That shit came fast.
It did. It did. Already. We have so on Monday we had 96 days left of 2022.
That's it?
And it's been 4 days.
Do you know how quick, man? Do you know how fast 90 days is going to fly by?
Like, we're going to blink and it's going to be December 31st.
My kids have been on me too. Like, so my birthday is in like 2 months. I'm like, hey, why are you telling me that? Stop telling me. I don't want to hear that. You keep acting up, you ain't getting nothing.
Well, last week you said that you were going to start Christmas shopping. Have you done that?
Hey, look, and I'm ready to start taking what I got already back. Take this back. I still got receipts.
Snaps, they better get on it.
Hey,
they
look,
better get they act right.
I ain't playing.
So it's the end of September, and if you recall, we started the month talking about Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
This is true.
So we're gonna end this month just talking about mental health in the Black community, and we're going to talk about grief, and we're going to talk a little bit about just insensitive things that people say and do during that process of grief after you've lost someone.
Okay.
And then we do have an honorable guest speaker today that's going to talk to us and share with us a very personal story.
Who that there? Who that there? What's her name?
Her name is Juanita Pineda.
Juanita, whoa. How you doing, Juanita?
Hello. I'm doing pretty good. Thank you. How are you?
Glad to have you on. We're good.
Good. Thank you very much for having me. I know we definitely like to keep things light with humor in the community. And this is definitely a very serious talk that needs to be had more more commonly
That's
in
right.
the community.
That's
so
right.
I am very thankful to both of you guys for closing out September with such an important message.
Thank you for joining us.
Thankful for you being here.
Yes.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, Juanita is going to talk to us a little bit about her personal story and as it relates to suicide prevention awareness. And so we're excited to hear from her. And again, can't thank you enough for spending your Thursday with us and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
No other place you'd rather be, right? On a Thursday?
Absolutely not.
You know what I'm saying? Where I wanna
I work from home, so it's nice to get out of the house.
I give you that. I feel that. I feel that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. So, So how do you feel about that?
Well, obviously it's going to be a whole lot to unpack. Definitely some difficult conversation. But definitely needed, Sometimes the things that are needed are the most difficult to hear, accept, and come to terms with. But it's definitely needed on that process to healing and, journey to prosperity and just better living,
Absolutely.
Because you cannot stay cooped up with your thoughts, pain, or any of those things. Those things will definitely tear you down and kill you in the long run.
Absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken, in the Black community, we definitely have like leading cause of death from high blood pressure,
Absolutely.
stress.
Yeah.
That's not a game. That's not nothing to play with, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, we walk around all day long with smiles and, you know, the mask up, but at the same time, it's like, hey, sometimes you got to drop that and you just got to be raw. Got to be real.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, have you personally, like, had any experiences with losing someone close to you?
Absolutely. Excuse me. When I was 12 years old, I lost my father. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. I lost my father when I was 12. It was really a rough time for me, the rest of my family, for my mom, being that I'm our only son. So, you know, having a boy turning into a man and not knowing what to do is pretty heavy.
Absolutely.
My mom raised 4 girls before me, so, you know, she got through that with my father, and raised also my elder brothers from my father. But just having me by myself, no dad around anymore, it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
Was your dad's death sudden? Or was it something?
It kind of was to me, you know.
Okay.
It kind of was. It wasn't like an accident or someone taking his life. But there was like medical issues there.
Okay.
And just as a kid, you're not like let me expect the worst. You know, you're always thinking like, I'm gonna think about the better times and you know how good it's gonna be after this. And that's what my dad used to tell me all the time. Like, oh, when I come out of here, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna have new legs. It's gonna be this. It's gonna be that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then that day just didn't come.
So your dad was in the hospital, in and out, it sounds like, with medical issues. And so you kind of knew that there were some health concerns.
Right.
Did your mom or dad ever mentally prepare you for just kind of what death might look like, or that could be a possibility?
No, I honestly, and I don't fault them for it. I kind of think I prepared myself more so, because before going to my father's funeral, I probably had been to about 10 funerals, maybe 10 plus as a child. So I won't say it was normalized, but it wasn't nothing new to me.
Okay.
You know, so, and then you know how people say it's like, it's all good and whatever until it happens to you. You know, it's kind of like that thing. So now it's happening to me, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot more heavier than how it looked seeing my aunt or an uncle or a cousin or anybody else for that matter, you know, because this person is in your household every day on a daily. You expect to go home and see them. You expect for them to come home and see you. So,
so once your dad passed away, how did you deal with that? What did that look like?
I was lost. Honestly, I was completely lost. I was frustrated, very frustrated. Nobody really had the answers for me.
Did you act out?
Belligerently.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
a great deal of it.
Okay.
I tried to keep it in moderation, but I ain't the best at that. But it was just definitely a lot of unanswered questions, misunderstandings, you know. But for me and what I've learned in life is you can only be frustrated at what you don't understand. When you start to actually gain that understanding, it starts to remove some of that frustration that you had there, you know, because then you can put the pieces of the puzzle together and you're like, okay, I understand now a little bit better than what I did when I was younger. So, but I was definitely just livid.
At what point did you come to terms with just like what you said, that deeper understanding, and that when, as it pertains to death, unfortunately, there aren't any answers. No one can really provide you with that.
Right. That's true. Honestly, I can't ever say I ever come to terms with that. You know, like somebody that close to you, I don't think you ever really come to terms with it. You learn how to cope with it.
Okay.
More so than to actually be like, yeah, I just accept it and it's cool. Like, you know, for the most part, I had to learn to start calming down and not be so amped about everything for no reason. Cause it's like, now this is trickling into unrelated things, and that can work against you versus working for you.
Instead of being so reactive.
Right, right. It's better to respond than react. So I had to learn that, and some of it came easy, some of it came hard. You know.
Do you ever recall anything that was insensitive that people around you may have said or done that really just angered you even more so when you were going through that grieving process?
You know,
I know there has to be a couple of them.
Yeah. You know, everybody used to have your mama jokes. You remember those back in the day? And that was like always a go-to when you're just losing about it. Oh, your mama. People would say that and say your dad or something. So that was one of them. But people kind of understood and knew me. So they were like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry about that. Like, and they kind of backed up off of that. And I mean, I didn't really let any of that get to me too much because I knew that they didn't understand the situation. More so, in all honesty, I would say it had to come from within my home with my mother.
Oh, so you don't feel that your mom was sensitive
Or
empathetic?
I won't say that she wasn't because I wasn't being mindful that she was grieving a husband, you know, and I was too young to really process that in the moment.
Or
right, because I was, you know, when you're that young, you're concerned with yourself. That is what it is. That's just part of life and part of growing up. So, there was a lot of moments where me and my mom argued. You know, for the littlest of things, felt like we would never really be on the same page again. Couldn't really hold a conversation with each other, so we weren't gaining ground.
Right.
And that was just my cry for help because it was me telling her, I need you. You know, I really need you bad. Like, you can't teach me how to be a man. My dad already gave me all the tools he could before now to become that. But I need you. You know, I don't need you to be this hard person right now. I need you to just be my mom and be soft. You know, yeah, I need you.
Yeah.
Because regardless, you a woman, but you my mother. I need you. I have to have you. There's no way around that. You know, and it's like I'm your only son. If anything happens to me, well, how are you gonna feel?
Right.
You know.
Right.
I don't know how you might process that. You might see my dad in me. You know, you want to keep that going as long as you can. You know, as much as you can. You definitely want that legacy to live out. You don't want that to become something that's wasted, you know, on my behalf, or someone take me from you or something to that degree. And then you look back and say, dang, I wish I could have did more, or I should have done more.
So you're what, 33 now, right?
Oh, yeah.
So at 33, have you and mom ever had that conversation and have you guys completely moved past that rough patch?
Yeah, I can say we have. We have that conversation all the time.
Okay.
You know, she's traditional.
Okay.
So you kind of can understand just the vibes of that.
Okay. Okay.
You know, you're gonna have to try different angles a bunch of different times before you finally make a breakthrough. But we're gonna eventually make one. You know, that's how I viewed it.
Okay.
And we did. And I mean, we talk about it all the time. You know, sometimes she lets me know how she feels, and then I let her know how I feel. Just, you know, how she feels about missing my father, how I feel about missing my father.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, like I say, understanding has really helped a whole lot in the situation, because I understand that you were grieving just like I was grieving, and you didn't know what to do. You know, you had no clue of what to do, or you probably were panicking and thinking like, where do I go from here? How do I navigate? You know, and I mean, eventually she learned to trust me and know that, yeah, your teachings didn't go in vain. Neither did his.
Right. Right.
You got to trust your teachings. I tell her that now, still to this day. You know, even being 33, I'm still my mom. I'm always be her baby to her. So
yeah. Do you guys have any traditions that you still follow or celebrate in like honorary? Yeah.
Honestly, no. Not. I mean, I do probably on my end. But not together. Not that I can think of. Like, we definitely call on his birthday and we talk to one another. But as far as just like a tradition that we both follow together, nah, not that I can think of.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have, what's your fondest memory of your dad?
Man.
That sticks out in your brain?
Oh man. Like good memory or bad?
Just at the drop of a well,
I mean, you know, it can affect you in so many different ways. You know,
I say at the drop of a hat, you're 33. You were 12 when he passed. Today, me asking you that and you not being prepared for the question, what is the fondest memory that you have of your dad?
You never know. Like, all right. Honestly, I think my most fondest and the thing that I think of the most is probably when I used to play Pee Wee basketball.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in the Pee Wee League, and I was on the Lakers.
Okay.
In the Pee Wee League. Yeah.
Did he coach?
You know what? My dad did coach, but he didn't coach none of the teams I played on.
Okay.
He used to coach for the school I used to go to.
Okay.
You know, because he was an athletic director there at the school. My mom was a teacher at that school. Okay. And I attended there from 1st grade to 5th grade.
Okay.
So it was like being at home, at school, no difference. It didn't matter.
So when you say that that's your fondest memory of your dad and that you were playing on the Pee Wee League, what about that sticks out to you?
Just how he would act in the crowd when I would hit shots and stuff like that.
So you're biggest fan?
Oh man, you don't even know.
I love that.
Awesome. You don't even know. Like, that's why, like, even for my kids, like, when I put them in sports or they do anything, I'm acting a fool. I'm that parent on the sideline. Yes. Guaranteed. I want them to know. I can care less about anybody else out here. Just know I'm watching and you are definitely impressing me.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
You know?
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, that's how my dad was all the time. Never failed.
Yeah.
Never
I love
failed.
that. I love that. Thank you for letting me just ask you a bunch of questions.
Man, no problem.
And, you know, taking you back to probably obviously a not so memorable time, you know, but again, we started this by saying it's going to be, you know, tough. It's a conversation that needs to be had.
Right.
And it is a very sensitive topic.
Right.
I think the unique thing about all three of us sitting in this room today is that we've all experienced grief and loss in some capacity. And I don't think it matters if you're prepared or if it happens suddenly. You know, loss is loss. And it's, I think sometimes depending on who the person is and how close they are to you, you don't know until you're in those shoes, how you're going to feel, how you're going to process it. And so but what we do know is that the one thing that's inevitable in life is that we all live and we all die.
That's true.
Right? Or we're all born and we all die. I won't say live because not everybody lives, right?
Very true. Very true.
You know,
very true.
Surviving. You're right about that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So thank you, Nathan.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Yeah. And so at this time, I think I'm going to turn it over to Miss Juanita.
Hey.
How are you tonight?
I'm not doing too bad, actually. To be completely transparent, I've been a little nervous and anxious about this. We're coming up on his 21st birthday next month. So it's a little difficult. But at the same time, me being me, I always try and put a little bit of positivity to it. So we are definitely trying to get our plans in order, and it's a lot going through an entire month that is suicide awareness. And of course it's on my mind daily, but I jump on social media and it's right there, and it's just constantly so triggering. But at the same time, I'm trying to use it in a positive way to just say, okay, this doesn't have to be triggering. I can use this. I can continue to try and keep my outlook on opening the nonprofit organization and just trying to utilize what I see going on in the world and put something in works to help with that.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your nonprofit.
So Push Positivity Project is a nonprofit organization that I am in brand new stages of getting developed. I got the name from my son, Elijah. He passed away June 1st, 2021 from suicide. He was a very positive kid. He always had this big, huge smile on his face and was always constantly reminding me and everybody else to just keep going, just keep moving forward. And unfortunately, with the pandemic happening right during his senior year in high school, that took a lot of expectations away from him. He had these grand plans for his senior year, and they were supposed to go to New York, and they were supposed to walk across that stage on the Chandler High football field, and he didn't get to do any of that. And so that was a major disappointment to him. And unfortunately, he hadn't gotten insurance for his purchase for their New York trip. So even regardless of the COVID situation, they didn't give the kids back their money if they didn't purchase insurance. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who could have planned for a pandemic?
Nobody.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
So he was so crushed about that and just getting into adulthood. So it was a lot that was hitting him. So I did notice some changes in him, but my main reason for doing Push Positivity Project is because I was remembering what it was like to be 18. And at 18, for me, I had a 6-month-old newborn, and I was graduating from high school. And so realizing that my son was going through a lot of those same difficulties that I was at that time, and remembering just how resourceful I was at that age. I know that a lot of people don't necessarily have those types of skills. So I decided that with realizing everything that Elijah was going through, and unfortunately how his immediate village didn't realize that, I want to have a organization where kids can just reach out to us directly if they need assistance with tutoring, or if they just need therapy services or clothing closet, a food pantry, just resources to getting them to different Zoom meetups once a month, just to talk about things that are going on in their life, because it's a little bit easier for them to open up to peers and other friends more so than their parents about what's currently going on in their life.
True.
And so that's my big goal with starting this Push Positivity Project. I just want to have a place where youth can reach out for any type of services that they may need. They can do it, their parents can initiate it, and just kind of get into the habit of letting our community know it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to not know exactly what you're doing in life. And there are people out there that can help you make those decisions or help you find those resources for things that we're looking for.
Definitely.
One of the big things that I do want to provide with the nonprofit organization is a bereavement fund for parents that lose children to suicide. Because one of the big things is that myself and my ex-husband both had Elijah covered under life insurance. But of course, life insurance policies do not exist anymore if the cause of death is suicide.
Really?
They do not pay you out.
I had no clue about that.
I didn't know that either.
That is a clause in most life insurance policies. If the cause of death is suicide, that eliminates you from getting any benefits. What they may do if you've had the policy for, I feel like it's a year or 2 years, they'll pay you X amount of dollars for however many months you've had the policy. But that's it. You don't get your $100,000 or whatever it is. And he was on that policy just under, like a month under that stipulation. Right. So that gave them all of the clause to say, yeah, sorry, we don't have to cover this. Wow. Your policy isn't going to cover anything. So we did everything we were supposed to as parents. We had our children covered under life insurance, and unfortunately with him making this decision that he made, it was not covered. So we had to do a GoFundMe, and thank goodness our friends and our friend family just came through for us in the most extraordinary way. So that's something that I want to be able to have, so that parents don't have to do things like that, because it's hard enough trying to pay for funeral expenses as is, and when you're dealing with something of that magnitude, that should be the furthest thing from your mind.
Right.
So I feel so strongly like insurance companies should have some type of waiver for kids or something that
especially for kids,
right.
especially
something has to be taken into consideration, like review the whole ordeal. Like clearly he didn't just go kill himself so me and his dad could get $100,000. Like, come on now.
Right.
It would seem like it would be more plausible if that was like an age limit thing for that. That would make more sense, because you're held to a higher standard the older you get, apparently. So, younger you would be more of a liability, which makes more sense.
Absolutely.
You would think so. We should open our own insurance company.
Right. Seriously.
Honestly, I mean, with all the stuff that's going on, it makes you really think about how to take what is already in place and make it better.
Absolutely.
And, because there's so many cracks in the system. There really are. And that is a great example, because who would have thought?
Right.
I had no idea.
Until it's too late.
Right.
Until you have that situation literally right there in your lap. And I only know it because of watching true crime documentaries and stuff, and they mention it on those. But so when I was faced with the situation, I automatically knew. I'm like, this is not going to be covered. And of course, I still did my due diligence just to see what they would say. And they sent me the denial and everything. So I'm like, okay, we're going to figure out a way to fix that for parents that are dealing with that. And I also just want to offer scholarships. Elijah was a big theater and arts fan. He loved music. So I want to do scholarships in those areas of school. So it's a lot. I have a big dream, and I'm still kind of in the works of getting my website up and doing all of that. So it's definitely taking a lot more legwork than I was anticipating, but I still keep getting these signs that I feel like are from Elijah telling me, hey, you remember you said you were going to do this. Let's keep doing it. So this talk and yesterday's talk definitely are my little reminders that I need to still be doing something about it.
Absolutely. I have chills as you're talking. I have to say that I have chills. I can't imagine just what you've been through. Even though it's been some time, I know that wound has to still be very, very fresh. This is your son. You carried him and you brought him into this world. And so, I've experienced loss. I've not experienced it to that magnitude. And I can say that because every loss is important to us, right? But I feel like it's not the natural order of things.
We have expectations of loss order, essentially.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And being a mother, losing a child is like the ultimate loss,
Oh, yeah.
So applaud you for so many reasons. Number one, just having the strength to even have these back-to-back conversations in these last couple of days, you know.
Right.
And I do agree with you that it's a way to honor your son and just
Absolutely.
keep his legacy alive, you know, because while, you know, whatever he was going through felt so strong for him that he, you know, took his own life, you know, there's a reason, you know, and I know that's the last thing that you want to hear as a mother, that there's a reason, right?
Right.
But you have to make it to where his story, maybe it will help someone else.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so I applaud you for sharing. I applaud you for being here. And I also applaud you. You know, you said something that really hits very close to home for me, is that life insurance piece.
Yeah.
Because within our community, many of us do not have life insurance policies.
True.
And
very true.
I personally know this firsthand from losing my mom. And when I lost my mom, I too had to hedge up a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is not something that you want to do when you're grieving the loss of someone that you love, you know. That was, her death was very sudden, so it wasn't like your son, it wasn't something that was planned for. She was in the hospital. She'd been in and out of the hospital for like a couple of weeks, and the doctors kept telling her it was like a blood clot, and then they would say, you know, that it was, I think they told her that it was like, oh my goodness, coronary, no. They said something with her, with heart failure.
Oh,
so
wow.
Congestive heart failure.
There we go. Yep. They said it was congestive heart failure. So they went back and forth for like a couple of weeks. And then she went into the hospital on like a Sunday. And by, I would say Tuesday, Wednesday. I remember talking to her on a Tuesday for a while she was in the hospital. She hadn't told me that she checked herself back into the hospital, but she had been in the hospital for a couple of days, and she kept saying, I'm going to get out of here, and when I get out of here, everything's going to be fine. I'm going to change my diet. They gave me, you know, a scale, and they gave me all these things, and they had put her on warfarin. And a blood thinner. Well, unfortunately, it was a blood clot that they found later, once it was too late. So once they put her on warfarin to, I guess, break it up, it separated and it went to her brain. And so she ended up having an acute
Stroke?
aneurysm. It was a stroke. It was a stroke. Acute stroke, like that Wednesday. So... but I said all that to say that, I mean, not having life insurance and that wasn't something that like my parents taught us and educated us on. I mean, I think being just like a corporate employee, you know, you get $100,000 and you know what I mean?
They automatically
like,
give it to you for a few bucks out of the month. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so knowing that now, having to be faced with that and going through that, I applaud you so much for having that, you know, for even though, you know, it panned out the way it did, at least you had that in place. And it's important for people to know that how important it is to have life insurance and have, you know, these policies in place and these arrangements, no matter how old or young, you know, how healthy or not you might be, because that's the thing about death is you never know when it's coming your way, and it is the inevitable. And you do want to be prepared so that, you know, while you're grieving, that is the money shouldn't be
process.
It's an easier process for sure.
Why do you think our parents never really talked to us about that stuff or emphasized how important
that was
it
something
is?
that I was thinking about while you were talking about what happened with your dad. It's that helicopter parenting. It's all these things that don't get discussed to kids. It's we don't discuss this in front of children, but those are definitely the conversations that need to start being had when mom and dad are sick, or if there's anything going on. Yeah, it's uncomfortable and it's scary, but you can't let it get to that point, and now all of a sudden it's just thrown in the face.
Right. I'd definitely rather have my children for that matter, be prepared.
Absolutely. And be aware of things.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. Not even be prepared necessarily, because you never can prepare yourself for the worst, right. But to be aware is a whole nother ball game.
Yeah. Absolutely. I also think it's just a lack of education. Yeah. A lack of knowledge, because, even with like at home, even after all of that. So we actually had my mom pass away. It'll be 6 years this November. And right after she passed away, my nephew passed away like a week later. Oh, no. And then my husband's grandmother passed away. And all of that loss, I remember saying to him, hey, we need to really think about like our afterlife arrangements. And do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Like all of that, and I remember him saying, no, I don't want to talk about that. We're not doing that. I'm too young as far as I'm concerned. And it was just so, again, people deal with it differently. Yeah, and for him, yes, his grandmother passed away, but he got he was prepared, because they knew for some time that she was going to be going. Right. And she had dementia. Okay. Oh, so wow. That's what she passed away from. And she had lived a long, prosperous life, right? Mm-hmm. So I think while he was sad and grieving her, it wasn't like a sudden, like, someone just ripped away from you, you know? So his thought process was like, well, she's older and I still have time and we don't need to be thinking about that. And you're just kind of freaking out. Whereas I'm like, my mom was 54 years old. Yeah. Like, she wasn't old. She
still had a very long life.
Exactly. And then my nephew, a lot like your son, was 19 years old. So it's like nobody knows. I think the Bible even says, no man knoweth the time or the hour, where it pertains to where Jesus is coming back for us. But we also don't know when that death angel is coming for us, So you definitely need to be prepared, people. Absolutely. So that's the moral of that story. Absolutely.
So would you say, do you believe that there are stages of grief?
Me personally, I'm trying to figure out what term I really want to use. I don't feel like there's stages necessarily. I feel like grief is almost, to a certain extent, it has its own love language. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because just going through it myself, I need to talk about Elijah. I love to talk about Elijah. I love to see pictures of him. Right. And I'm kind of freaking out a little bit because those memories just feel like they're fading a little bit. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's almost like memory and recollection is kind of my love language with grief. Mm-hmm. It kind of helps me process. Mm-hmm. My sons, one of them, for a while, he didn't want to see any pictures of him. He didn't want to talk about him at all. And so I understood, and I told him, okay, well, then that's your love language and how you want to deal with your grief. And we will respect that. We won't force you to talk about him. We won't do any of that. And that's what I keep telling them. I'm like, none of us have experienced a loss this monumental. Right. We've lost their grandparents over the years, and we've lost other family members, and they understood death, but now having it be their best friend and their big brother, it's a whole new ball game for them. Right. So absolutely. We are definitely dealing with it, going through the stages of grief and kind of listening to what they identify them as. I wouldn't say that I've gone through all of those stages. Okay. Denial is just not one that exists for me. I'm like, it happened. There's no denying that. There's no bargaining. This is reality. I can't even have the thought of trade me for him or any. This is what it is. So it automatically is acceptance and healing for me. So I'm still trying to figure out my own term for it. But I was telling a friend of mine that I feel grief definitely has love languages. And I feel like that is something that they could further, I guess, and look into or something like that. Just like they say the 5 stages of grief. Okay, well, let's figure out what the love languages of grief are. So then that way you know how to help somebody and approach them when they are grieving.
Right.
I love that.
Do you think
I think it's a great way to spin it, because grief has such a negative connotation to it.
Absolutely.
And I think some of those actions or emotions that you feel while you're grieving, to someone that has never been there, they don't understand it, and it can come across very negative.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
Or insensitive.
Absolutely.
Right. But again, you people, if you've not experienced it, I almost feel like someone that hasn't experienced death really should tread lightly. And I really feel
Most
like
definitely.
they, you know,
Most definitely. That is.
They forget their manners. Is
Yeah,
what
this is definitely true.
who raised you?
Your humanity and everything, just your whole morale. It's
Yes.
really like ridiculous.
Absolutely. And so I love how you said, you know, the love languages, because everybody receives love and gives love or shows love differently.
Right.
Exactly.
And ultimately, God is love.
Right.
And so even in spite of that grief, while you may be angry, it doesn't mean that, you know, you're angry for so many reasons, right?
loss,
But that doesn't take away from who you are as a person.
Right.
And so for someone else to kind of form their own negative opinion about what someone is going through,
or how they're handling
handling grief is pretty crazy.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and it's ballsy in my opinion. So I always say,
even one of them when he gets upset, I'm like, hey, if you want to punch something, cool, we'll get you a punching bag. Just don't punch my wall.
Yeah.
So we have to work with that, because that's
that.
his way to get out of his aggression. So I don't want to stifle him, because you need to get that frustration out. We're just going to figure out a positive way for you to do that, and not in mama's house.
Yes.
How long did it take you to realize that when in your other children, you know, to identify with that and know that that's needed, and you don't want to stifle that?
Yeah. For me, it was kind of right away. I just didn't get to address it because I wasn't local. So Elijah, when he passed away, he was in Texas, and we don't know why he was in Texas, but he was driving through Texas. And so I, at that time, was living in Florida. And so after everything happened, I wanted to be closer to my kids here in Arizona, but I didn't want to be in Arizona right away, because I knew that was going to be too traumatic for me to come back at that time. So I'm like, okay, we moved to Vegas. We're a little bit closer. I can just drive down and see the kids as much as I want to. I can be more involved. And so from Vegas, I was communicating with my ex-husband, and my older 2 boys lived with him. My younger 2 boys were living with me. So I have 5 boys all together. Elijah was my oldest.
Some troops.
Yeah, I met you when your boys were all little, and you hadn't had the 2 younger ones.
No, I
yet.
only had the older 3 at that time. Yeah.
Wow.
So I had 2 that were living here in Arizona and 2 that were with me in Vegas. And my ex-husband was, at that point, our baby boy has passed away, so we've kind of been relying heavily on each other, because at this point, my husband is wonderful. He's being completely supportive and phenomenal, but the only person in the world that knows how I feel exactly is his dad. So we were just kind of being very supportive to each other, and he was keeping me in the loop about the older 2 boys that were still home with him. And Joseph was breaking up electronics. He was punching doors. Him and his brother were just constantly arguing and fighting. And I just realized, okay, this is him getting out his grief. He's angry. He's frustrated. So then when I moved back to Arizona, we had posters left over from Elijah's memorial service. And I have one of them framed, his graduation picture. It's in my living room. And then I had 2 other ones that I didn't want to try and hang them around the house because I'm like, I already have a big picture to him. So let's not overdo it. So I gave both of his brothers one to have for their bedroom. And Joseph had put his in his closet, and he had it turned facing the wall. So he could not see the picture at all. And then I had noticed he had decorated his room. He put up posters and everything in his room. So I'm like, okay, he does not want to see pictures of him right now. So I just kind of processed that on my own. And that's when I would have that conversation with him. I'm like, listen, I know at your dad's house you were having a little bit of a hard time. You get angry. You don't exactly know why you're angry. More than likely, that's your grief hitting you. You might be thinking about your brother during that time. You may even be pissed off at him, and that's okay. I'm like, I'm kind of pissed at him too. And I'm just letting him know whatever it is that you're thinking, whatever it is that you're going through right now, it's normal. And I can't tell you that it's not normal, because however you handle this is how you need to handle this. But we're going to find healthy ways to get that out as well. So we've definitely been working on that. Joshua, my 17-year-old, he's a lot more vocal. So if he's having a hard time, like yesterday, I was on my way to therapy appointment with Joseph, and Josh called me, and he's, Mom, I need to talk. I'm like, I can't talk right now, but you can text me, and I promise you I'll get right back to you. So he definitely calls me and lets me know when he's having a rough time, when he's thinking about his brother. They both go to Chandler High School, which is where he graduated from. So that in and of itself is traumatic for them, especially Josh, because they went together for a couple of years. So
I commend you for that. You know, just knowing how to identify within yourself, and just keeping things in moderation with your own grief and respecting your children's grief. It's not easy to always compromise. You know, when it comes to that. And that's something that was not really taught to us, and our parents didn't necessarily show us. But that is so important. When I started having children, that's one of the many things I thought about. You know, just I signed up to put you first forever.
Absolutely.
It's literally that. No matter what goes on, no matter what happens. And, you know, I think about those things just in case of any reason, just to always try and stay grounded and not let myself get ahead of myself and put myself first, because I'm going to eventually pass as well. And my child may be here long after me, but I don't want them to be stuck or just SOL and trying to figure it all the way out and not having any teaching, you know, and walking away with anything. When there was an obvious moment to teach and learn something from that, you know, because who knows, when they grow up and have children, it could happen. Something else could happen. And I don't want them to not know how to navigate
those tools.
You know, like there's no telling. You might have the whole regimen down and know everything that you might need to do in that moment in time, but that moment in time can happen and everything else can go left or right. You just never know. But for a fact, if you do have something there to work with, I know you can always come back to this and have that to go from, versus just having nothing to
that
go off
foundation.
of. Yeah, you gotta have that.
Yeah.
And I really commend you for that, because that's not easy.
That's definitely been something that prior to Elijah, I've been kind of on this childhood trauma healing journey myself. So with what happened with my son, it definitely put a lot of things into perspective for me and gave me the insight that I have been living in survival mom mode my entire life. And one of the things that you said in regards to your mom really resonated to me is that it's okay to be soft and you don't always have to be this hard mom. I think a lot of Black moms, we just are born that, not necessarily born that way, but we are essentially trained that way and we are brought up that way. And
environment
that's
definitely is
what
that.
we see is just mom being strong, independent. And even if we're not angry, we have so much going on in our hearts and in our minds that we are taking care of, that it comes across very angry and very mad Black woman, angry Black woman type situation. So right now, over the last few years, I've been trying to do a lot of self-healing and being the mom that I needed at their age.
That's good.
So
that's
essentially that's what we had been working through, and that is, I think, one of the biggest one of the biggest things that brings me peace in regards to all that's happened with my son, because he saw that growth and that change in me.
I love that.
That's how you break generational curses.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He saw that in me before he passed, and we got our moment because he went out to Texas and did not tell me and his dad that he was going out there to buy his first vehicle with his grandparents.
Okay.
And so he gets out there, his grandpa takes him, they buy a car, he's super excited. And then his grandpa's like, oh yeah, by the way, I can't take you back home to Arizona until next week. You're going to have to stay here, because his grandmother was having open heart surgery and he didn't know.
Oh, okay.
So he gets out to Texas and all of a sudden, oh, you're going to have to stay an extra week. And he was not planning on doing that. So at this time, I'm still living in Florida, and he calls me and he's panicking. He's like, Mom, I have to work. Like, I can't just stay here. My boss isn't going to accept me just not coming back to work.
Right. Okay.
And I said, you know what? I'm on my way. So that night I got a flight out to Texas. I picked him up. We drove back to Arizona, and he ended up dropping me off at the airport, and I went right back to Florida. Like, this was a whole 24-hour trip for me. But during our road trip, he got to express a lot of things that him coming into being an adult, he noticed. And he understood about me and about, unfortunately, my divorce with his dad and everything of that nature. And even in the coming months after that, he had called me and he's like, Mom, after living with my dad and living with my grandma, he's like, I understand you so much more. And he's like, I am so proud of you for leaving and focusing on taking care of you the way that you did. And that just gave me, I cried. I'm like, thank you for understanding. And so now, with dealing in the aftermath of this, the last day that I saw him was the day after Mother's Day. He came up to New York, Mother's Day 2021. I got to spend the weekend with him. And that Monday, I dropped him and Joseph off at the airport. And I just stood there and watched them until they walked through TSA, and I couldn't see them anymore. And that was the last time that I saw him. And he passed away about 3.5 weeks later.
Wow.
During that time, he had called me and he's like, I love you so much, and I understand what you've been dealing with, and I'm very proud of you. And that just gave me so much peace in my heart for all of the shortcomings that I knew that I had as a young mom, everything that I was learning about myself now that I had been in survival mode for so long, that I wasn't nurturing and I wasn't soft and I wasn't that sit down and let me show you how to do it, Mom. I expected my kids to know it. I learned from Family Matters and Step by Step and Full House, like, y'all should know how to do this.
Right.
And it wasn't that way. One of the things that Elijah had told me is that he didn't know how to skate.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, we did not get outside and teach these kids how to skate. Like, luckily they knew how to ride bikes, but just the basic things of nurturing, I missed out on because I was that provider mom. I was working 2 jobs and full-time hours during the week and on the weekend. And I am definitely trying to do things differently with my 4 boys than what we did with Elijah. So like I said, I get to work from home. So that definitely gives me the opportunity to be way more involved with them and everything that they have going on. Being able to get them into therapy and be aware of everything that it is that they're needing, be more aware of their cries for attention, their changes in their personality, just focusing on anything that I see differently with them and not being so hyper focused on the corporate world.
Yeah.
And essentially that's what my life was.
So it sounds to me like when you look back at it, it's more like you see the signs more in yourself that you probably missed or didn't pay close attention to at that time, versus seeing it.
I don't want to say that I didn't pay attention to it. I'd say you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So being a young mom and watching my mom grow up and being a provider, in my head, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
The kids have a nice house. They have food. They're going to school. They have clean clothes. They have the stupid video games they wanted. They have all their toys.
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me that there were so many things like sitting down and reading a book with them, or sitting down and just playing toys or a card game. My husband is so great about sitting down playing goldfish with the kids. And I'm kind of taken back by it because I wasn't that kid that had an imagination. I was always very serious and this is what it is. I would read novel books and I didn't have that play in me. So as a mom, I didn't have that nurturing play or give that to my kids. And I realize it now. So now I do a monthly calendar and I schedule in our family night.
Good.
Like we're going to play Uno on Wednesday night so that I can be more aware and get into a consistency of doing it to give them that exposure. Because luckily for me, I had a Valley Big Brother, Big Sister. I was part of the Valley Big Brother, Big Sister program. And my big sister was amazing. And she exposed me to a lot of things that we did not have in the community. She took me hiking. She took me to the Grand Canyon. She did all of this stuff that I would have never had exposure to. So now I'm trying to tap back into what she did with me and bring that back to the forefront because I realized she played a huge part in my life. And she was actually a older white lady from New York. I loved her to death, but so much of what she showed me is so taboo in our community because a lot of things that are geared to helping us, hiking is self-care and reading a book is self-care.
Right.
We're told that's white people stuff. So we're
led to believe it.
Yeah.
We don't know what we don't know.
We don't know what we don't know. And I'm like, actually, me reading more gave me a great vocabulary. And me learning how to go camping, I can now share that experience with my kids. So I'm definitely trying to break a lot of those barriers, those things that are trauma induced type of things, and make sure that, like I said, my kids have the mom that they definitely deserve and the mom that I needed, and hopefully we can avoid something this tragic again.
Right.
I think, it's very cliche to say, but it is something that is said, right? And that God never puts more on us than we can handle.
I thought you were going to say God moves in mysterious ways. I swear, I was like, if she says what I think she's going to say right now, then I know. Right? But that's true. That's very true.
And just listening to you talk, I know that, again, it's not what you want to hear.
Right.
But there's a greater purpose in all of this.
Absolutely.
And it became your burden to bear because you're built for it. And then you have 4 beautiful boys that now you get to do it over, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of what and you can do it differently.
Right.
And a lot of what you've said today has resonated with me also, because
me as well.
I also was a young parent and a mother of a boy. And, you know, I didn't get another opportunity. I don't have multiple chances to do it over, right? And so every day I kind of, in the back of my head, I think to myself, man, I really, really, really pray that my kid turns out okay. Absolutely. And I really, really pray that, you know, he doesn't make the same mistakes that I made, or that or that his dad made. Because like we've already talked about, I wasn't the softest mom. I didn't know how to be a soft mom, you know? So, exactly. And I say I wasn't soft in the terms of like, I was a yeller, you know? I was always yelling.
I deal with that. Absolutely.
Always yelling.
You know, always yelling. But
always yelling.
But you know what though?
Sure, dang.
Like she said, he had a home. He had a clean home. He had a nice home. He had food in the refrigerator. I went to work every day. That was my concern, is, you know, being in the corporate world,
off our list, checking off those, our
exactly, making
what
sure
we're supposed
that
to have.
He never had to ride the bus, or that he didn't have to worry about like where his next meal was gonna come from. You know, he played all the sports, and you know, so in my mind, I didn't necessarily have all of that growing up. So in my mind, I thought, okay, well, I'm giving him a way better life than I had, you know. So now I know that children don't need you to be a perfect mom.
No, not at all.
But they need you to be an active mom.
Yep.
And they need you to be present, and they need you to nurture them, and they need you to spend time with them. And that time and that nurture and that care goes so much further than any video game, any, you know, any trip they could have taken, you know, that's the truth of the matter. You know?
I used to ask my mom sometime, like, Mom, why you can't be like TJ's mom sometimes? You know, why you can't be like Craig's mom? You know, old school traditional moms are like, well, I'm your mom. You know, who else you want me to be? Because I ain't them. You know, they hit you with that. But it was just like, look, I don't want you to really be their mom. But sometimes give me that leniency. Give me that nurture that I see. It's not like I'm not seeing it. These are my friends. And, you know, as my parents, I would definitely want you to have the biggest influence. It would make sense. But, you know, your friends are going to be there, and they're going to be a really big influence on you, because you'll definitely open up to them before you open up to your parents. But as a parent, I'm trying to beat the friends to the punch because I need to know. Yeah. You know,
for sure. What I would say to both of you guys, and I wonder, is there a difference in our parenting when it comes to boys versus girls?
Most definitely.
Because you were a boy mom. Completely. You're a boy mom. I'm a boy mom. You're a girl dad, right?
Oh, yeah.
And while your mom may have raised four girls before you, she was hard on you for a reason.
This is
true. I think in our community, it goes without saying that a lot of times we are harder on our boys. Absolutely. Because we come from a community where our fathers were absent. You know, the black men in the community were in prison, or they were on drugs, or, you know, all kinds of negative things that we saw. I think raising black men, right, boys, into men, I think those scary thoughts run through our head. And so it's kind of like, we gotta be hard. Yeah, we gotta be hard. Absolutely. We gotta teach you to thrive in society and not be a stereotype and that kind of thing, you know?
And that's true. That goes without saying. But it has to be done, I think, in moderation as well.
And with love.
With love.
And
in moderation. You know, because as a man that was once a boy, just only having his mom, I was looking at my dad being gone as now I got to fill the shoes in this house as the man. You know, and my mom even asked me, like, how would you feel if I wanted to remarry? I remember telling her straight to her face, like, nah, that ain't gonna work out, champ. It's not gonna work out, champ. I don't know what to tell you. And at that time, Baby Boy had just came out.
Right.
You know, think about Ving Rhames standing in the damn kitchen. I'm like, yeah, I'll have to hurt him if he does this. So no. But that puts some pressure on us as boys turning into men as well, because if you've seen your mom struggle, you're thinking of a way to get her up out of that. So in turn, you'll always look at it like you're being her mom, but it's kind of like almost being her man, and you don't want that to be the case. You always want to be the son.
Right.
Period. You always want that to be your son. And then even in our community, some women have that tendency to kind of push that boy into that man role, exactly. As her man, when that's not what should be happening. It should always be that boundary there to know, hey, look, you my son, and this has to be done in moderation, with love, with care, concern, so that it's not so much stress and pressure on you, but also not as much stress and pressure on him, because you want that boy to turn into a man and thrive as a man.
Absolutely. And
never get stuck in that cycle. And that's really a vicious cycle after it really starts. If it's not done correctly, it's toxic. We have a lot of cases and scenarios like that right now. Baby Boy was a
prime example. Right, wasn't it?
Hello.
Exactly.
We really don't want that to happen, anymore.
We have so many different parallels, I guess, of trauma growing up that they all start to intertwine.
Most
so
definitely.
One of the things that you were saying about just kind of teaching them to be men, and at a point they feel like they have to step up and take that role. We as parents have to make sure to not put that burden on the children. And unfortunately, in our community, that does not happen. You do become, especially if you're an older child in the family, you become a second parent to your sibling.
You do.
You become that caregiver.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a big burden on them. So that was something that I also tried to not do, but at the same time, having to work and provide, I'm like, well, I have a babysitter at home. And in a way, I feel like Elijah was so wise beyond his youth, because there's so many different things, so many lessons that he taught me. And one of them was that he told me, he's like, Mom, it's not very fun coming out to your house because you're always in bed or you're tired and you don't want to do anything. And he's like, that's not fun for us. He's like, I could be at my friend's house or something like that. And that was years ago. And I understood that. It sucked hearing it as a mom, but I've always been that mom that I'm going to hear what they have to say. And even if I don't like it and it makes me uncomfortable or if it makes me cry, I'm going to let them say what they have to say, because that wasn't a luxury that was afforded to me.
Respect.
I didn't get an opportunity to talk about my feelings, or if I was frustrated with my mom, she didn't care. No. You can go in that room until you don't have an attitude anymore.
That part.
So I definitely tried to give that to my kids. Let's talk about what you're feeling. Let's talk about what's going on, so that they don't feel that way. And one of the other things that he struggled with is, because we protected them so much from how we grew up and how we were raised, we essentially did do a disservice to them, because they didn't know how to catch the bus or just do these little independent things that he felt at 18, 19 years old, he should know how to do that. And I'm just like, you're right. We shielded you so much from that we actually did do you a disservice. So,
and it really sucks too, especially in this day and time.
When you're trying so hard to do your best, and you're like, I just screwed that all up.
Yeah, because you want to see your child, you want to see your children grow up and do a lot of the things that you did and more. You know,
just
you want them to be better.
Yes.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Than who you were.
Most definitely.
And have everything you didn't have.
Right.
And
most
do everything
definitely.
you couldn't do, and we end up missing so many of the valuable lessons that we did learn because of who our parents were.
Yeah.
So,
right. That's true.
It's hard. You kind of have to take and pick from the different generations of what you want to take from Big Mama, what you want to take from your parents.
Oh yeah.
And then develop your own style, because everything is changing so much that we can't keep it that way.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
it's just about finding balance.
It's hard.
It is. But once you find that balance, you know,
you'll be in there.
Oh yeah, you'll be in there. It's not gonna be the easiest.
No.
You know, and sometimes it'll even become imbalanced at times.
Being a parent, I would have to say, is the hardest job
most
you
definitely
will ever have.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
It's harder than going to work.
Like
definitely.
it is 24/7.
It's 24. You don't turn.
They
it
don't
off.
care if you're
Exactly.
tired and it's 2:30 in the morning. He has to throw up.
I'm learning that right now.
Right.
I learned that right now.
Yep.
So it's definitely a big responsibility and one that I wish we were definitely more educated on in our youth. I remember taking child development and I remember talking about cognitive and behavioral development, but never knew how it would apply to my children later on. And I'm like, oh, okay, well now his fine motor skills are actually kind of out of whack because we didn't do this, and that.
Right.
So it's like,
well, I feel like it doesn't come with a handbook.
No.
You know, and it's something that you just learn as you go.
Yes.
And unfortunately for a lot of us, the younger we are,
Yes.
the least ready we are, right? And so even though as even older parents will say, I don't think you're ever really ready, right? Because it doesn't come with a handbook. But when you are young and you're inexperienced and you only know what you know, you're already setting yourself up for, you know, kind of
took 10 steps back.
Yeah, for sure. We're almost at time, but I do want to say, you know, to you, Juanita, how do you think the loss of your son has strengthened your family?
I feel like Elijah definitely essentially was trying to get us to be closer, to realize, hey, no matter what y'all have going on, because at the time of his passing, me and a lot of my siblings, we don't talk. I can go weeks and months without talking to them. And that kind of fueled what happened with him because we all noticed that there was something wrong with him. We noticed that he was different. We noticed that he wasn't taking care of his hygiene. We all noticed all these things, but because our adult problems and our pettiness were so much more important, none of us reached out to each other to say, hey, check in on him. Something doesn't seem quite right. So I would say that it has definitely made me be more aware and just say, you know what? I don't have time to hold these grudges, to have this family drama. I'm going to try my best to just heal from what we've gone through and we all figure out how we can be closer and build together now to especially support each other in this because I get a lot of, I think that's every time it does this, I'm like, that's him being a troublemaker because this is my urn pendant and it has his fingerprint on it. So I'm
wonderful.
like, every time something happens, that's him saying, hey, mom, being a pain. But it's definitely helped us to try and start being closer as a family and to put all of that pettiness to the side and just start doing those family traditions and being more involved with each other. Like I said, his birthday's next month. So his first birthday after he passed, his day of his spiritual transition, we celebrated in June 1st. We're going to celebrate his birthday again this year.
Nice.
So that is something that I plan on keep continuing to do. If he was still here, we would still be celebrating his birthday every year in the physical form. So we'll continue to celebrate his birthday and just trying to get out the message that it's okay to not know what you're doing as a parent and it's okay to reach out and ask for help and rely on your community. And if you don't have a community, if you don't have a village, we definitely need to start building them because it is so important. You single moms, single dads, whatever the situation is, we all need help. And especially supporting our children and making sure that somebody out there is looking out for them when we can't be.
Absolutely. Would you, if you had to do it all over again, and you said that there were signs that you noticed that you thought he's not okay, what would you do differently?
I would have probably made him come back to Florida with me from New York. That whole weekend, I was actually very irritated with him because of noticing such a personality change in him. He was like looking in the mirror and talking to himself, and he wasn't taking a shower, and I'm just like, what is wrong with this kid? Like, why is he being so weird? And never in a million years would that have crossed my mind. I'm just like, he's just being a little jerk right now and whatever. But I definitely would have asked him to come back to Florida with me, or I would have had a difficult conversation with my husband about moving back to Arizona. Because I tell my older two boys now, it hurts. It hurts so bad to be here
without him
16 months later, and to be back in this state and know that essentially this is what he would have wanted. He would have wanted me to be here in my happy, healthy state and have his dad and his brothers all in the same state. Like, I feel like there's so many different things that I could have done. When he reached out to me about how to do a resume, I was working because I worked my full-time job during the week, and then I worked on the weekends. So I was in the middle of work, and he's like, Mom, how do I do a resume? And I sent him the shortest brief text, and I'm like, oh, you just sell yourself, kiddo. You just put all your good qualities on there. And that was it. In hindsight, I'm like, maybe I should have just got on a Zoom and showed him my resume and asked him what his looked like, and let me take a look at it, and let's go through this together. So it definitely keeps giving me that reminder of take a moment. There is nothing in this world that is more important than my kids at that moment.
That
absolutely.
I've learned that in life right there, that opportunity isn't given. It's taken. It is the craziest thing to fathom and accept sometimes, but it's definitely necessary.
Oh yeah. And I was a big believer of my job. I don't want to get in trouble. I can't call out. I can't be late. Nah. My kid has a play. I won't be here. That's pretty much where it's going.
Yeah. Once you've experienced loss to that degree, so monumental, like you mentioned before, it changes your thought process completely. Everything you used to think, it goes out the door.
Out the window. You know, my sense of humor's changed.
Yeah. Well, and I think you realize just how quickly life happens. Yep. People are literally here one day and gone the next. Absolutely. And when you really wrap your head around that, you will take life so much more seriously. You will value it so much more. You will take the time to take those moments. You understand what self-care looks like. You know, you red flags are no longer just like, oh, I'm gonna just act like I don't see that. No,
true,
you know, you're gonna take action quicker.
It's gonna be just a little thing.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that it takes something so big to change your entire thought process. But if it hadn't, right. It would make you wonder, well, what's wrong with that person that they haven't changed their thought process? Right. So,
absolutely.
Do you, Juanita, have any words of encouragement or wisdom or recommendations that you would share with anyone else that has experienced the loss of a child?
I definitely do. So for that, I say be kind to yourself. That is the most important part of this process. I kind of went into autopilot mode when it first happened. And I had to get my baby taken care of. This is my reality. So just like we do, I'm going to handle this. And I handled it, and everybody's like, oh, you're so strong. And I'm dying inside, but I have to handle this. So be kind to yourself, because immediately after I got back home from Arizona to Florida, I was in the hospital for almost a week because I was dehydrated and I had a diverticulitis flare up to where they put me on a clear liquid diet for like 5 days. I couldn't eat any solids. Like I had so much inflammation and infection in my stomach because of not taking care of my body because of what I was dealing with. So definitely be kind to yourself. Take it step by step, minute by minute some days, because I can be having a great conversation and be hysterically in tears minutes later. So take it minute by minute and find your support and your tribe to lean on. Definitely utilize them. It's hard reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I'm having a bad day, but just saying it takes such a weight off of your chest, just to say, hey, I am not okay today. Absolutely. And hearing somebody say, that's okay.
It is okay not to be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but I think we worry about being judged
all the time.
You know,
we have to be heroes,
and especially in our community. Again, mental health and
gotta be raw.
Mental illnesses is just not something that we've ever really been very transparent about. And it's so taboo, as you said earlier. It's white people stuff to seek therapy and to talk about our problems, when in reality, it's healthy.
It's healthy. It
teaches
you communication skills.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So that's definitely my advice. And what we touched on earlier, just be kind. When you see somebody having an unexpected loss, when you see someone grieving, when you know somebody's going through something, reach out to them. Even just a, hey, you were on my mind, or something so simple. Definitely don't ask how it happened.
I was going to say that. I'm so glad you touched on that, because everybody says that.
That is,
oh my gosh.
I could not believe it. It blew my mind. I mean,
it's wild.
I feel like as a human response, you're naturally going to be curious. You see somebody passed away. Oh no, what happened?
They
don't
died.
Ask them, right?
They died.
You don't go and inbox them. So that one of the worst thing that happened, my sister actually had a coworker inbox her and ask, hey, what happened? Did it happen at your mom's house? What was going on? And my sister's like,
that's too much.
At that point,
that's way too much.
Yeah.
That's
and
way
my
too much.
sister's even like, I can't even believe you're inboxing me about this. And she's like, well, you inbox me all the time about work stuff.
That's not even the same shit.
That is exactly what she said. Wow. She's like, you message me all the time about work stuff. And I'm like, can you please give me her information? I'm calling HR. I was livid. I'm like, I am calling HR. This is inappropriate.
You ma'am, are what we like to call, a jackass. But you, ma'am, have embarrassed probably your family and everybody else that you know. You have no class and no decency.
Yes.
I'm gonna need you to take some time and get it together, please.
That is definitely my advice. Just be kind. Everybody.
I will say, to that point, I agree with you.
Right.
I agree with you that you do need to be kind. You need to be empathetic and try to find some sense of decency within yourself, to not allow your human nature to want to intrude and get all the details. I have been guilty of that. And I think, again, when you've not experienced death and you don't know until you know. I had someone pass away that I wouldn't say I was super close with them, but I was close enough to them. And they too committed suicide. And so my natural instinct was to want to know what happened. And I think I wasn't so much as being nosy as I was so like clue. I was just at a loss of like, I couldn't even wrap my head around how I had just seen this girl. And she seemed so fine and so normal. And then you're kind of like, wait a minute, what she did? What? Why would she do?
Yes.
Why would she do that? And now I know, like, I'm just kind of like, you don't ask that. Like,
You don't.
at the end of the
I take
day,
all that
she
stuff to my
passed
husband
away.
first. I'm like, this is my question that I know I can't go ask somebody else. So let me say it to you. Let me get my filter cleared out before I say something that's not politically correct.
Yep.
That's good.
So I love that you said that.
Yes.
For those of you out there that have never experienced loss, please don't ask anyone how they died. Just know that they passed away and they're no longer
Send
here.
your condolences and leave it at that.
Yep. And don't judge people for how they grieve or how they choose to process their love language in grief and lost. Because at the end of the day, everybody has their own process, and what that looks like may not look like the same for the next person.
Very true.
We just sat here and we've talked to 3 different people that have all experienced loss in different ways. And we've all processed it differently and are still processing it. Like you said, you know, there are days where you can be totally fine and, you know, break down into tears. And people that have not gone through that may say, oh my God, she's not over it yet. What the hell do you mean? You know? And I had someone say to me, yeah, you're doing this GoFundMe. You gotta make sure you know, ask people right now before they forget or before it becomes old news. And it's like, yikes. You know, that's such an insensitive thing to say, because I'm like, I lost my mother. I lost the woman that brought me into this world. You still have your mother. You know, I can't. Yes, I'm 37, but there are days when I want to call my mom. I do, you know, and it's like, and I can't do that. And so it's just, you know, just being aware, right? And understanding, and just like, just when you don't know what to say, it is while it's okay to not be okay, it's also okay not to say anything at all. You know, and
rather
that's
than say the wrong thing.
Yes, it's so it's okay not to say anything, and you can even say, I don't know how to help you. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help you.
But I'm sorry.
But I'm sorry. Exactly.
There's nothing you can say in that moment to reverse it or make it better. That's just what it is.
It is what it is.
You know?
Yep. And it's the inevitable. And everybody will leave this earth at some point in time. And
that's the only thing that is guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Prayers up for everyone who lost someone close. Whether it be a child or, you know, a father, a mother, any family member, friends, anything. You know, prayers up for you. Hope everything gets better for you. Also, in closing, you know, prayers up for Florida right now, because they are really going through it. We pray that everybody is safe, healthy. Please don't let no alligators eat nobody, Lord. That's ridiculous. Seriously.
I got away just in time.
No, it's wild. And yes, prayers up for Florida. We send our best wishes and our prayers, and you know, we want to thank you, Juanita, for spending your Thursday evening with us. I thank you, Nathan, for sharing with us your experience.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank our audience for once again joining us and tuning in to the Common Sensitivity podcast.
You know, the common sensitivity thing. The stuff that ain't always common sense. Sometimes it's sensitive.
And today's topic is definitely sensitive.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
So.
Most definitely. We thank you. We'll see you again on the next episode.
And we out.